During the 1850s, the traditional national political parties, the Whigs and the Democrats, broke up over regionalism and slavery. The Whigs disappeared completely, and the new Republican Party emerged in the North. In the critical election of 1860, the Democratic Party split into Southern and Northern factions, as shown in this cartoon. When the dust settled, the voters were left with 4 candidates for president.
The Republican Party was dedicated to the exclusion of slavery from the Western territories. This was not necessarily because of concern for the fate of the black man. Most Republicans shared the white supremacist assumptions of the day, but they disliked slavery as an institution, and they did not want to see it expand into the new territories. Northern Democrats tended to be soft on slavery, if only to keep the Democratic Party united and in control of Washington. Stephen Douglas promoted the concept of popular sovereignty, where settlers of the new Western territories would decide for themselves about slavery. Southern Democrats were energetically pro-slavery, pro-states' rights, and favored strict national enforcement of the fugitive slave laws. Their candidate, John Breckinridge, eventually became a general in the Confederate Army. California's ruling Democratic clique, Gwynn's Chivalry, was aligned with this bloc from the Deep South. Finally, there was the wild card, the Constitutional Union Party, and its candidate, John Bell. Bell believed that the political firestorm raging across the United States would die down if everyone, North and South, adhered strictly to the Constitution. Bell's position appealed to the Upper South, where slavery and union were both held dear. Here's the result of the election, as clear an expression of regional politics as the country has ever seen. Looking at this map, you could easily infer that California was a Union state, just like any of the others that went for Lincoln. The truth is much more interesting. Here is the popular vote nationwide. Lincoln won the election with only 40% of the total. If he had been facing a united Democratic Party, Lincoln would have been buried. He really was a sectional candidate whose name didn't even appear on ballots in the South. Here is how California voted. Lincoln's portion shrinks. He runs 8 points below where he did nationally. Breckinridge runs a whopping 10 points better. California was decidedly more Southern than the nation as a whole. In the end, Lincoln won California by about 700 votes, roughly half a percentage point. This is the election by county. Look at the national map from east to west. There is a near-perfect division between North and South, with Lincoln and Douglas on one side and Bell and Breckinridge on the other, until you get to Missouri, where order breaks down. The implications of this were dire. Missouri suffered the most vicious partisan fighting of the war because its people were divided in their allegiance. California was the same, only more so. This map shows how scattered the political landscape of California really was. Lincoln won the Bay Area, except for the Peninsula, and Nevada County. Douglas captured the top quarter of the state and Los Angeles. Breckinridge, the Southern candidate, won vast rural counties and swept the Southern mines. Our state would have been fertile ground for a Confederate partisan campaign based in the Southern mines.
The election of Abraham Lincoln led directly to the secession of South Carolina on December 20th, 1860. The rest of the Deep South swiftly followed South Carolina out of the Union. After the shelling of Fort Sumter on April 12th of 1861, Lincoln called for troops to suppress the rebellion. Most of the Upper South ignored his request and joined the Confederacy instead. Full-scale war was now a certainty. No one knew if California would stay in the Union. Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson Davis both had high hopes for California based on the results of the 1860 election.